tava namagrahane bhavishyati yugaitam namishena chakshusha parishayitam shunyaitam jagat sarvam govinda vidahena me aslishyava padaritam punashtumam adarshanam marmatam kurotu va yatatava vidadatu lampato mat pranatastu sa eva napaha Adao Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangotha Bhajana Kriya Tato Nartha Nivritti Shyat Tato Nishta Ruchis Tata Atha Saktis Tato Bhavas Tata Prema Vyajanshati Sadakanam Mayam Premna Pradurbhave Bhavet Krama Majjana Tramanandasya Najana Salakaya Chakshur Militanyena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Vanchkalptubhischa Kripasindavivacha Patitanam Pamanebhyo Vaishnavijus Namo Namaha. Oh, good evening. Nice Saturday night. So on Saturday evenings we're going to be discussing Lila. With the purpose of increasing our affection and attachment to Krishna and his eternal associates. I deal primarily in my discussions with Sambandha Gyan and those practices which will help us strengthen our devotional practice. But that doesn't mean that we leave aside the higher topics. We have to have some attraction for that. And although it seems like a long distance from where we possibly are to where we want to go, still, as we've just been hearing from Upanishadamrita, we have to keep up our enthusiasm, our confidence, our patience in following a regulative way, avoiding bad association and staying in good association. But we think that sadhana bhakti, going up through the stage of asakti, just that beginning of sadhana bhakti seems to be quite substantial to us. Shraddha, sadhu, acceptance of the spiritual master, engaging in bhajana kriya in a regulated way under his good direction, clearing the heart of all the anarthas, or realizing factually clearing the heart is something that is a gracious dispensation coming when those people that have some real spiritual potency see our sincerity, our humility, our sincerity, our determination. When they see that in us, then their affection for our unfortunate condition, for the fact that we are in an unfortunate condition increases, and then the anarthas truly fall away. So materially, we look at the practice and we believe we're the doer because that's what we've convinced ourselves we are since time immemorial. If that wasn't for me, none of this would be going on. It's a fact. None of this that's impeding your understanding of who you really are would be going on if it wasn't for yourself. You got that much of it right. So it's a start of some sorts. But when you look, it seems like, to get through the stage of anartha vritti, to become steady enough for long enough, with enough determination and enough confidence and patience. And it really, we cannot overemphasize good association in whatever way we can take it according to our circumstance. We have to take it in extreme doses. And if we're negligent in that regard, then we're simply making it more tedious for ourselves. More time is involved. The key is staying in the association of those people that truly are firmly situated and that can, and by seeing their example, by seeing their relishing of the pleasure of engaging in Krishna's service, our relishing of engaging in the service of Maya can diminish, because we can see there's a higher taste there. We need that good example as much as we can get it. If all we can get it is from reading, or all we can get it is from hearing lectures, coming to a couple festivals a year because we're engrossed in raising a family and performing our Krishna consciousness at home, wherever we are, in whatever condition we are, in whatever circumstance we've been put, we need to constantly seek out good association and constantly hear from those that are truly enthused, so that we remain enthused. So we, in that way, we can push through anartha nivritti. We can hopefully become steady ourselves as we see the steadiness in others who are firmly situated, and we can develop a taste for the process. And as we develop a taste for the process, for hearing, for chanting, for remembering, for serving the deity, and residing in the holy place, we develop a taste for it. Even when we're in a circumstance where we can't be there, well, we can go there daily in our meditation. We can at least do that much. That's good for us. And then we can actually go and associate during those special times. And that taste for the practice will develop into the taste for the object of the practice. And then at the stage of asakti, then we start to see what our true spiritual position is. But you think about, well, we hear Sri Chaitanya crying out in his prayer, just at the stage of nista is when true humility is coming in. And that true humility is characteristic of what we just mentioned. That true humility is understanding I'm truly in a helpless condition unless help's offered to me. That's a real big step for us spiritually, because we see so many transcendentalists. Well, most of them don't even come to this. It's only in the tradition of bhakti that we see that that level of humility is one of the stages of deep spiritual advancement. Because the jnani, the yogi, even the karmi, they're thinking it's by my actions that I am making advancement in my spiritual pursuit. The jnani is thinking I'm learning and I'm detaching myself, and as my knowledge increases, I can become more and more detached from matter. The yogi is thinking I can control my senses and become detached from matter, or gain mastery over it. So he can swing both ways. He can swing towards the jnani way, where he wants to be liberated in Brahman, or he can swing towards the karmi way, where what? He wants to control everything and use his control of his senses to gain mastery of the world, become the super Power Ranger. I can become smaller than the smallest, bigger than the biggest. I can go anywhere. I can acquire anything. I can control anybody's mind. I mean, these are pretty strong powers. And, you know, so as I said, he can go either way. He can go towards Brahman or he can go towards control. And then the karmi thinks, if I do these sacrifices and I do them properly according to the rules and the regulations at the right time and right direction, with the surrounded by the Brahminical people, with the proper priests who are qualified to perform the sacrifice, I can get my new son, I can get my new car, I can get my new wife, I can go to the heavenly planets. It doesn't end. Whatever I want, the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas will tell me how to do it, what to say, when to say it, the way to say it, how to intone the things. And as long as I get it right, it's good. I'm going to get what I want. Of course, a little slip up there can be, things can come up a lot wrong, as we saw with, Twasta trying to get some revenge against Indra. You know, one of the highlights of the Bhagavatam is this narration where we're seeing that the Karma Kanda section, it sounds real good, but one little intonation is a little bad, and then all of a sudden Vritrasura is coming, and he's not coming the way he should have. He looks like the one that can kill Indra, but he's not. So we look, humility, how much important is this humility? And this is the stage of Nishta. Asakti is really when all the material hankerings have left us. And there's only hankering for spiritual engagement. Nadanam, Najanam, Nasundaram. So, and then what to speak of Asakti, when I'm starting to realize the only thing I want is to live in the house of Nanda Maharaj. Now we're getting past, now that's sadhana bhakti. That's sadhana bhakti. Okay, that's like, wait, Rupa Goswami said devotional service and practice, devotional service and ecstasy, is that just 1/3 of it? I was thinking, I'd heard something that Prabhupada had said, and I'd heard it many times. And I was just trying to quantify it. He said, well, if you're 98% Krishna conscious, then you'll go back to Godhead. And then he saw some despondency in his disciples' countenance. Well, if you're 90%, it's enough. That's enough. Well, if you're 80%, still everybody's, right, like I could be 80% Krishna conscious. And he's finally leaving the room after giving this talk. And he says, oh, if you're just 70%. Well, I was thinking 70%. Well, if it's 33% devotional service and practice, 33% devotional service and ecstasy, and 33% devotional service and pure love of God, well, you have to be to praying. Well, that makes sense. So as a spiritual master, he can see so many things to pull us along. We're thinking 70%. Oh, wow, that means I can still be 30% in Maya. No. What if you have to be 70% Krishna conscious and have to be up to the stage of beginning, praying? What did Prabhupada mean? You think that? Maybe he meant that. Maybe he meant something in between. I don't know. But I was just thinking, it's an interesting way to look at it. So, I'm going to quote His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada from his Krishna book, to kind of give us an indication of how extremely important it is to enter into these pastimes through hearing, no matter what our level of advancement is. This is good for us. It's good for all of us. All the cowherd men, including Nanda Maharaj, used to talk of the wonderful activities of Lord Krishna and Balarama. And they were always so much absorbed in those talks that they forgot the threefold miseries of this material existence. This is the effect of Krishna consciousness. What was enjoyed 5,000 years ago by Nanda Maharaj can still be enjoyed by Krishna conscious persons simply by talking about the transcendental pastimes of Krishna and his associates. This is what Nanda Maharaj and his associates did. They were there in the Lila, observing it, but one of the main things that they did is they continually talked about the Lila they were in. They continually talked about Krishna. What's he doing today? What did he do out there with the calves and the cowherds? Well, of course, they have some different affection, so beyond that, they can't really see due to their pastime and their affection. As far as what Krishna did at night. But this is our process to hear these pastimes repeatedly. We'll never reach an end we'll never be satiated. They'll never become old. It's not like, oh, I've heard that pastime. It's not like that, because when we hear it, there's always something new. There's always something exciting. If nothing more than in the enthusiasm of myself to hear it or the speaker to speak it. That in it itself is new and exciting. That is Sangha. That is the loving relationship that we are hankering for. It is one of the 6 exchanges of love Rupa Goswami mentions in the Upadeshamrita. To inquire confidentially and to speak in confidence. And these are confidential pastimes. So we're speaking about the most confidential thing. Think about it. Think about all the people of the world that are God-fearing people, or at least they wear that somehow or other. Do they know? How many have this tradition and this prayojan of entering into these most intimate exchanges of love between Krishna and his associates as their goal? And you think about that, if you could put it in perspective and continually remind ourselves of that, then the road, as far as it may, as long as I may have to go, it's not that far. We were watching a documentary about animals. This one animal, I forget what it was, it was
reindeer.
It was a reindeer. This reindeer, it was like one of these nature shows. This reindeer covers enough ground in his lifetime to circle the earth 3 times. It's a reindeer. All he wants is some grass and to get away from some pesky flies. And he's running enough in one lifetime to circle the planet 3 times. We want Krishna, How many times should we be willing to circle the planet and run after Krishna? What a glorious thing. So I thought we'd talk a little of some of Krishna's pastimes when he became a calf herder. He started out as a calf herder and as an apprentice and worked his way up in the craft of the family. So the 11th chapter of the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam starts with Sukadeva Goswami explaining to Maharaj Parikshit that the cowherd men of the village were startled, and they came running to find Krishna tied to a grinding mortar, standing amongst two huge fallen trees. Now they heard the noise and they thought it was a thunderclap. What could have happened? Did lightning hit somewhere? And they came running, and there's Krishna standing there innocently with this. What happened? What happened? How did these trees fall? What could have possibly happened? The young boy said there, well, Krishna did it. Yeah, Krishna did it. Yeah, he the mortar, Mother Yasoda tied him up, and he was going through the backyard. He got stuck sideways, and he just walked and the trees fell over. Yeah. They had a hard time believing that. Their affection for Krishna was such that a display of his opulence in that way was beyond their conception. They couldn't put their mind around it. The young cowherd boy says, well, not only that, not only did he pull him over, there were these two celestial beings that came out. Oh, now that's okay. Sure. Now you have to understand the age here. Krishna is not yet 3. So he's really, Krishna is young. And the cowherds that are his associates are also not very old. So you can understand the older people in the village would not put a lot of credence to such a story. But some of them said, well, I don't know. How did they fall over though? What could be the cause? We heard he could be as strong as Narayan. He could have God's powers. No, it couldn't happen. Yeah, it could. No, well, they didn't know one way or another. And then the wonderful people coming out. Yeah, okay, probably didn't do it. Sukadeva goes on to explain what it was like during that period with the residents of Vraja. So he started here by talking about the affection felt by the older gopas, the older men of the village for Krishna, so much so that they couldn't really see past his childhood and their affection for him in childhood to see any of his aishwarya, any of his opulences, his power enough to pull over 1 billion trees. Well, power enough to make the trees in the first place. What to speak of to make with the roots that deep. This particular tree has very huge roots. To knock it over would be extremely difficult. So it goes to talk about the older ladies of the village and the way that their affection was such that they tried to test Krishna's strength. So, of course, they just such a sweet little boy, and they would, can you dance for us? If you dance, we'll give you some sweetmeat. So he would, oh, sure, I can dance. He would dance, clap his hands. They would give him half a sweetmeat. Can you bring the wooden slippers here? Oh, yes, I can bring that. How about the little table? Oh, yes, I can bring the little table. How about this? Well, yeah, I could, he touches it. I could do it, but I'll just stand here and touch it. And then, he would also, beat on it. Hey, I'm strong enough. I'm strong. He'd show them he was very strong, make some gesture. And he just won them over. They were completely, uh, enthralled. But the point Sukadev making here is these are in Krishna's, this is Vraj Bhumi. Krishna's manifesting his pastimes in the earthly atmosphere so everybody can see. And specifically, Brahma and Shiva. And here he is, and he's controlling everything, and they have knowledge of this. And here's the older women of Vraj are controlling him with their affection. He's trying to teach all the universe. This is what controls me, this loving affection. So much so that I'm willing to bring the slippers and the wooden plank. I'm willing to dance for a sweetmeat. At one time, a fruit vendor was coming around the village. These were the forest people, and they would collect fruit and bring it to town and sell it. Great business if you can get it. So you simply go to the forest, you collect something, and you take it, and people pay you some money, and you could survive in that way. So the fruit vendor would come, and Krishna, any of the Vrajavasis, you want some fruit, you come. So Krishna had seen the older people bartering, and he wanted, yes, I'll barter like the older people. We got a handful of rice and tried to make it there with a small hand, rushing feverishly to be first in line. And most of the rice fell, but here he gave, and her affection immediately poured out. Look at this beautiful child. Immediately, as much fruit as he could handle, she handed him. And immediately her basket filled no longer with fruit, but with gemstones and pearls and gold and silver, just full, just overfilled with wealth for a little fruit given to Krishna. But there's another thing Vishwanath brings out. But what Krishna really gave was Krishna praying. So you could imagine what she felt. Krishna gave her complete and total love for him in that exchange. Krishna's going out in the early day. He'd go out with his cowherd, his young friends, not yet even calf herds. They would go out to play in the woods nearby. And it would be time to call them in for lunch. Well, they don't want to get lunch. We don't need lunch. We just had breakfast, and we're in the middle of playing. And so Mother Yasoda said, well, go call Krishna and Balarama, have them come. It's time to eat. And Rohini would call Rama, Krishna, come, please. It's time to eat. She saw she was having no effect whatsoever. And she thought, well, Mother Yasoda has so much more affection for Krishna than I do. I'm sure if she calls, he'll come. She goes, Mother Yasoda, you need to call them. They're not listening to me. Mother Yasoda is... So she went and she called. She didn't get too close. She knew if she got too close, they'd probably run away. So she called from afar first, and please, you come, it's time to eat. And there, somebody say something? Did anybody hear anything? They continue to play. So she had to negotiate. It's really late. You have to be really hungry by now. The milk is pouring from my breast. Please come, you must eat, take my breast milk. You're covered with dirt, so please come. Still playing. It's not having any effect. Balaram, your father is sat down to eat his lunch, and he will not eat until you boys are at the table. So come. You don't want Nanda Maharaj to starve. He's not going to eat unless you come. No. Your boyfriends are going home and they're being bathed and cleaned of all the sand and all the mud, and they're putting on fresh garments and fresh. So try to get Krishna to, oh, well, my boy, well, I have to outdo them because they're getting ornaments on and getting, they're getting decorated in so many ways by their parents. The mother Yashoda is there. Yes, you should come and be decorated also. Oh, and by the way, this is the junction day of your birth star and the moon, and you have to give away charity to the Brahmins. So many arguments were there. Finally, she was able to grab their hands and take them back and prepare them, bathe them, and feed them nicely. After the incident of the fall of the Twin Arjun trees, there was some discontent amongst the older Gopas, and they had a town meeting, got together, and Upananda, who is Nanda Maharaj's older brother, well respected, and always has good ideas because he's older and he's been, he always considers things according to time, place, and circumstance. He spoke to the other Gopas, the older Gopas, he says, maybe it's time we move on. Look at what's happened. Baby Krishna and Rama are constantly in a situation where there's the possibility of some harm. This witch came in and tried to poison Krishna. Then there was, why before he could even walk, he's under a cart. The cart fell down and practically crushed him. Another demon came and took him up in the air, and he even survived that. Lord Vishnu's protected him in all these situations. And just the other day, these trees fall down. I think for the protection of these young boys and all of us, it would be better if we moved from here. So there is a forest nearby. So we're currently living in Mahabad, Brihad Van, big forest. But there's this little forest here. They'd moved there after Krishna was born from Nandagram. So he said, well, between where we are now and where we were, there's this Vrindavan forest, very nice. In fact, the whole year round, it's the same temperature, it's the same atmosphere all year round. It's beautiful mountains, beautiful orchards and gardens, and lush grass for the cows. We should go there. I think the boys will be safe there, and I think a change is in order. The older boys, older men of the village, they all agreed. And why delay? Let's go today. All right, let's go today. So that was interesting. They immediately packed up all their utensils and household goods and bullock carts, and they put the older men and the ladies and the children and the Brahmins, along with all the paraphernalia in the carts. They put all the cows in front. They picked up their bows and arrows and their bugles, the older men of the village, and they proceeded to leave Mahavad for Vrindavan. And they arrived there before they could even make any residences. They put all the bullock carts in a half moon and parked in such a way with their carts so that they were protected with thorn bushes were in one area and the carts were in one area. They took unpacked the carts and put everything behind them, and the cows could easily come and go. And they thought this is the greatest thing. And Krishna and Balarama were really pleased because the atmosphere of Vrindavan was just so pleasing to them. Lush grasses and everything. When there were right after arriving in Vrindavan, then Krishna's maturing past his Kumara age. Generally, this happens after 5 years. Well, Krishna's not everyone. It's a little special, so he showed this maturity a little bit sooner. In Vishwanath Chakravarti's Thakur's commentary on this chapter, he says, yes, Krishna was 3. So at such an early age, Krishna was given charge of the calves. And being given charge of the calves, the other young boys who were his contemporaries, they also were given charge of the calves, and they began their apprenticeship by showing how good they could take care of the calves. No longer did they get started taking care of the calves, and along comes another threat, another demon. Now understand, the demons that Krishna's dealt with up to this point, it hasn't been real overt, the struggle. I mean, okay, so he sucked on the mother's tit that died. She died, and yeah, he kicked up his little leg and the cart fell over. Nobody really knew what was going on behind the scenes. And yeah, the guy flew up in the air, but no one could really figure out that Krishna became heavier than the whole universe and forced him down onto the cement slab so that he'd die. And, you look at, even the falling of the trees, no one could even believe it. But now Krishna's getting a little older. So the threat this time is a demon sneaked into the midst of all the calves in the form of a calf with the intent of killing Krishna. Krishna immediately detected him, gave some signal to Balaram, check that one out. That isn't one of our calves. So he snuck up to the calf and he grabbed it by the legs, hind legs and tail, and whipped it around and threw it into a local tree. Immediately when it was killed, it, as happens again and again in Krishna's pastimes, the demon assumed his original form, very large form. So that was Vatsasura. Now, when Krishna killed Vatsasura, you have to understand all the demigods are watching this from their celestial airplanes, which are generally not visible from Earth. I mean, even the demon Rakshasas, we hear of all these flying saucers, but who's ever really saw one? So what to speak of the celestial demigods. So they immediately see this, and that he's killed this demon. It's like, well, this one we can get. I mean, we see no one could mistake. Krishna took the demon, whirled it around, and threw it in a tree, and they throw down flowers, and they start to blow their bugles, and there's kettle drums, and all there. It's a celestial concert in praise of Krishna, and the other cow calf boys they're in wonder. What is all this? Wow. You can imagine when they get back to the village, they got a story to tell. Now, when we look to these pastimes, the pastimes that we're discussing here from the 10th canto are during Krishna's Prakat Lila. Prakat means he's manifest on this plane, his Lila, his pastime. The Aprakat Lila is a little different. It's constantly going on, and its highlight is a consistent older age of Krishna when he's engaged in loving affairs at an eightfold daily program of making love with the residents of Vraja. So Bhaktivinoda says something interesting in his Siksamrita. And he explains to us what is the distinction between the prakat and the aprakat. He says these occasional pastimes, speaking of prakat, manifest, like sometimes it's referred to as a traveling road show. Krishna's going from one universe to another with his eternal associates and displaying these pastimes to attract the fallen conditioned souls. These occasional pastimes, which are unfavorable for the practice of meditating on the daily pastimes, are given a symbolic significance. By remembering those pastimes, the devotee aspires to destroy his own sinful conduct. In other words, if we hear what the Thakur is saying here, is until we're fully qualified to enter into that meditation, which is of the aprakat, of Krishna's most intimate loving affairs in an eightfold daily system with Radharani and her, the older gopis, until we have that qualification, if we are still hampered by the fact that we're advancing in the stage of Sadhana Bhakti, then these pastimes are good for our meditation. The prakat pastimes, wherein we see the symbolic significance of Krishna killing the demons. And Bhaktivinoda even goes so far as to, in looking at the demons, he points out what they represent as far as our tendency to try to enjoy independent of Krishna. So we know Mother Patana, she's seen as representative of what? Of somebody that comes and gives falsity, presents herself as something she's not. And Bhaktivinoda says, yes, there are some gurus who present themselves as something they aren't, simply to cheat us, just as Putana wanted to cheat the child Krishna. Or the cart demon. So many misconceptions, immediately Krishna kicks them out. At the very beginning of our devotional practice, he kicks them out, like he kicked over the cart. And the whirlwind of our mind, Trinavarta, he immediately weighs us with true spiritual substance in such a way that we're not the mind, the swirling thoughts in the mind are blown out. So, Bhaktivinoda points out that when we look at Vatsasura, did I take that? Being controlled by greed and the sinful activities caused by it are represented by Vatsasura. By Krishna's mercy, this fault is vanquished. So greed and sinful activities are representative of Vatsasura. And this is the way Bhaktivinoda Thakur sees this particular representation. He says we can look at these as having not only are they true pastimes that happen when Krishna manifests in Vraja Bhumi, in his earthly manifestation. I mean, they really happen, but we can also see some symbolic significance there that will help us to let Krishna do the cleansing of our heart, which gets back to what we opened with, the humility to see that this is an endeavor for mercy, not an endeavor that's based on my effort. My effort is to get mercy. The real work, Sheto Darpan of Arjanam, is done by the Lord himself, by Krishna, by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When they cleansed the temple for Sri Jagannath, I mean, who collected more dirt than anyone else? As they got a little older, each calf herder had a little group of calves. So now they got a few to take care of. And they were taking care of those. They went to a reservoir of water one day. And they, in the early morning, they let the calves take some water, and they also drank from the reservoir, and they noticed this huge demoniac figure, looked like a mountaintop that had been cut off by a strong thunderbolt. And it was in the shape of a huge duck. And the duck also came to kill Krishna. And he immediately plucked Krishna up and swallowed him whole. When Krishna hit the back of his throat, it wasn't such a good experience for the duck demon. Bakasura was his name, and Krishna was as hot as a red coal, you can imagine. He was immediately thrown out. And seeing that, Krishna, the demon immediately tried to use his beaks to kill Krishna, since he knew he couldn't eat him alive. And in doing that, Krishna grabbed those beaks and he pulled him apart just as a young child would pull apart a leaf of grass. Bakasura, Bhaktivinoda says, false dealings due to deceit and cheating are represented by Bakasura. Without eliminating this, pure bhakti does not appear. Again, the denizens of heaven, they are throwing flowers, putting on a concert. Again, the young calf herds are mesmerized by the whole scene, a wonderful, wondrous scene. And they go back to the village and tell of the daily exploits, and immediately it's written down and songs are sung and they remember Krishna, which is really why we want to continually hear these pastimes, to remember Krishna, and to remember what is truly the goal of our practice is to enter into these pastimes ourselves, to become pure enough through our practice and pleasing enough to the sadhus that we're invited into this realm. First within our own heart, as the holy name enters our ear and comes to our heart, these pastimes will become manifest to us. And from there, as we advance more, then we are actually allowed to enter into these pastimes on the earthly plane to truly develop the deepest love for Krishna, where we, just as the Gopas, cannot stand it when Krishna even disappears behind a tree. We practically faint. That's how much affection is developed by the devotee when he is allowed entrance into these pastimes on the earthly plane. In this way, all the cowherd men headed by Nanda Maharaj enjoyed topics about the pastimes of Krishna and Balarama with great transcendental pleasure, and they could not even perceive material tribulations. Vishwanath writes in his commentary, in this way, whatever appears as mundane material tribulations simply nourishes the pastimes and are there and therefore is called Lila Maya. Not only did the cowherd men, well, I didn't get the whole quote. Vishwanath's kind of giving us a warning here. Don't think that any of Krishna's eternal associates, even in his earthly pastimes, are in any way materially affected. They're Nityasiddhas. They're coming to enhance the Lila. And when they say that when they say they're hungry or thirsty or they appear to in any way be engaged in material activities, it's just something to increase their praying, their loving affection. So I'll stop there. Are there any questions?
I have a question. You're talking about I was talking with Mayapur the other day, and we were talking about like our ultimate goal, our ultimate destination, and I was saying that there are particular sweetnesses that are there in the Boma Lila that happen on earth, and that our ultimate goal is there. And you've also, you talked about how we enter into Krishna's manifest pastimes that are happening somewhere in a material place, but I felt like I was kind of talking out of my hat, and I'm not really sure what the ultimate situation of Krishna's pastime is. Is it a Boma Lila? Because there are particular things that happen.
Let's just say Lila. When we get to the stage of Lila, it's not going to matter here or there. But there's a distinction, as Bhaktivinoda pointed out. There's a distinction in that, what's manifested on what we would think was the material plane, but really, as Vishwanath pointed out in his commentary at the very end of this chapter, there's nothing that's experienced that's material about it. It's all spiritual. So ultimately, if our aspiration is to enter we're Raganuga. We want to follow in the mood of the Ragatmikas, the eternal associates, and serve them in pleasing Krishna. That's whether it be in in the earthly plane, Boma Vrindavan, or the transcendental realm. But there's some distinction when it comes to the transcendental realm, the unmanifest pastime.
Well, do we have to, we have to enter into the earthly realm first?
Well, that's what they say, yeah. But I mean, the other is there, the internal, but there's I think some, if I understand correctly, there's some final purification for the sadhaka that happens in entering into the earthly pastimes.
Do some stay there though? Or does everybody progress to the manifest?
Once you're in Krishna's eternal pastimes, whatever he wants, if he wants to take you on the road show or leave you at what, does it matter?
It was part of what, like, Guru Maharaj was, Indulekha had a question about karma, and he talked about how you have a particular, born to a certain set of parents, and then Krishna can change your prarabdha karma, and you go and you find another set of parents within the Lila.
And also, so, I mean, some devotees have forms where they're serving both also all the time in the sadhaka with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So their affection is such that they have affection there. So there's nothing limiting. You get to pray. There's no limits at that stage on how it'll manifest and whether you want to engage in this Lila or not. Krishna is there, just as Krishna would, dance and clap and sing for the pleasure of the older gopis, just for a little sweetmeat. Krishna has so much affection for those that are the most affectionate for him that whatever. That's his whole purpose. He wants to show, I love them so much. Wouldn't you want to be one of them? Then I'll dance for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.